Welcome to Live Your Greatness with your host, DeCarlo Eskridge.
Thanks for joining me, your host, DeCarlo Eskridge, in Live Your Greatness. Today, we're going to be talking about the source of power. Now, what does that mean, the source of power? We know that when we're talking about the light bulb, for example, we know that there must be electricity. We know that if we're talking about an airplane, of course there must be an engine, there must be gas, but there also must be the wind current also to carry that airplane. So when we talk about the source of power in living your greatness, what is it that we're talking about? Man's brain, body, mind, faculties, and talents are all mere instruments used in the demonstration of his greatness. In and of themselves, they do not make him great. A man may have a large brain and a good mind, strong faculties, and brilliant talents, and yet he is not a great man unless he uses all of these in a great way. And we see so many examples of that, where we see doctors, lawyers, professional people who are living on the street today, who have the potential of greatness, but they're not living it out. The great qualities which enable man to use his ability in a great way makes him great, and that quality is given the name wisdom. Through ancient texts we find God says, "Ask me for wisdom, and I will give it to you liberally, without bounds." So why is it that so many of us fail to live our life of greatness? Wisdom is the essential key to greatness. What is wisdom? Wisdom is the power to perceive the best ends to aim at and the best means for reaching those ends. It is the power to perceive the right thing to do. The man who is wise enough to know the right thing to do, and who is good enough to carry out the right thing, and who is also strong enough to do the right thing, is truly a great man. He will instantly become marked as a personality of power in any community, and men will delight to do him honor. So what does that mean? As we begin to not only think about wisdom, but to be about wisdom, to live out wisdom, honor will be bestowed upon us in our lives, because people will recognize that we are people of wisdom, that we can be trusted to be about our words and the thoughts that we manifest that are positive, that will take us towards the goal of the life we've been destined to live. But wisdom is dependent upon knowledge. Where there is complete ignorance, there can be no wisdom. No knowledge of the right thing to do, wisdom is lacking. Man's knowledge is comparatively limited, so his wisdom also must be small. And unless he can connect his mind with a greater than his own to draw upon, by inspiration, the wisdom that his own limitations deny him, he can do what really great men have already done. Man's knowledge is limited and uncertain. Therefore, he cannot have wisdom in himself. We know of a lot of smart people out there, but as their intelligence reflects and shows, they're not always wise. Because, see, even though they have the information they do not have the ability to carry out the execution of the thing they know to do. So it's not enough just to have the information. It's important to understand the execution of the information that we have, and as we move forward, wisely executing the information that we have, we will be noted as wise and great people. But no one can have wisdom in and of themselves solely. That cannot be the focal point or the stopping point for our wisdom. If my wisdom is solely dependent upon me, I'm going to find myself lacking. So I have to connect with the source of all wisdom. Let's continue. Only God knows all truth. Therefore, only God can have real wisdom, or the right thing to do at all times. Man can receive wisdom from God. Let me give you an example. Abraham Lincoln was a man of limited education, but he had the power to perceive truth. And if you look at history, if you look at those who have spoken about Abraham Lincoln, they will all tell you that he was wise beyond his years and his learning. Now, where did Abraham Lincoln obtain this wisdom? Abraham Lincoln was connected with a source much greater than himself, and he knew the right thing to do at all times under all circumstances. And in having the right thing to do and having talent and ability to contemplate the right thing to do, he was able, during the time of the abolitionists in the Civil War, during the compromise period of these United States, when all other men were more or less confused about the right thing to do or what ought to be done, Lincoln never was uncertain. Now, occasionally he was pulled by public opinion, but he stuck to his conviction. Now, where did Abraham Lincoln get that conviction? He saw through the superficial argument of the pro-slavery men. He also saw through the impracticability of the fanaticism of the abolitionists. He saw the right end to aim at. He saw the best means to obtain those ends. And it was because men recognized that he perceived truth and knew the right thing to do, they made him president. If you look back on Lincoln's life, what you will find is all of the defeats and failures he encountered before becoming president. And most men would have given up long ago if they had encountered the failures, the apparent defeats that Lincoln had experienced. Loss of loved ones, loss of political office, time and time and time again. And yet, he persevered. Now, why did Lincoln persevere? Because there was a power in Lincoln that was greater than Lincoln. And Lincoln perceived a vision for his life that was divinely inspired. And it was this flame, this flicker of a flame, that caused Lincoln to persevere. Any man who develops the power to perceive truth and who can show that he always knows the right thing to do can be trusted to do the right thing. He will be honored and advanced, and the whole world is looking eagerly for such men and women. Creators, are you willing to step up to the plate and connect with that divine knowing? The creator of the universe desires and seeks relationship with you so that you can be the great person that you have been called to be. When Lincoln became president, he was surrounded by a multitude of so-called advisors. Hardly any two of them agreed, and at times they were all opposed to Lincoln's policies. At times, almost the whole North was opposed to what he proposed to do in liberating the slaves. But he saw the truth when all others were misled by appearance. And we remember that ancient text that says, "Judge not according to appearance." But Lincoln was able to transcend in his mind and see beyond what was apparent. Because he was connected to the divine source, his judgment was seldom wrong. He was at once the most ablest statesman and the best soldier of his period. Where did Lincoln, a comparatively unlearned man, get his wisdom? Certainly wasn't due to some formation of his skull or some firmness or the texture of his brain. It wasn't due to any physical characteristics, because Lincoln was an extremely tall man for his time. So he stood out. He was just this tall, skinny man. So it wasn't that he was this very attractive figure like a Washington, for example, to look upon. So where did Lincoln get this power? It was not even power of a superior mind that he had obtained. Lincoln, through all outward appearance, was no smarter than most of the men in his time. But it was due to a spiritual insight. He perceived truth, but where did he get this perception of truth from? We see something similar in Washington in having the courage to do the right thing and perceive the right thing during the time of revolution. We also see something of the same in the genius of Napoleon, who always, in military matters, the best means to adopt. We see this greatness of power in Alexander the Great and so many others throughout history who have impacted not only our world and the world of their time, but certainly even generations to come. So where does this power come from? When we look back at Washington and Lincoln, we see that there was something great in both of these men that was not really of themselves. We see something also great in men and women throughout history. Perceive truth, but truth cannot be perceived until it exists. And where did this truth come from? The same is true of all who manifest wisdom. And once you understand this secret, you obtain this truth by reading the mind of God. So as we move forward in the coming weeks, we will talk about reading the mind of God and how to become the conscious creator that you've been destined to be. Again, I'm your host, DeCarlo Eskridge. My email address is DeCarloEskridge.com. For more information, begin understanding and receiving that you're connected with the creator of the universe. Until next week, this is DeCarlo Eskridge signing out.